Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video, I like to discuss a widely commented on statement from senior Labour MP Lisa Nandy about the critical incident at Dover this weekend caused by Brexit, but not explicitly blamed on Brexit by Labour or indeed anyone. Some are, as expected, more than a little miffed at this, but did Nandy actually make any mistakes in her approach? And if so, what were they? But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So, as I discussed in a previous video, the now annual fun and games at Dover whenever large numbers of passenger vehicles try to get to France is a direct consequence of Brexit. However, the news media try to downplay this. The Conservatives obviously dismiss the entire idea altogether. So rejoiners look to Labour as the only seriously influential force which might be able to shape UK-wide opinion to redress the balance. But redress came there none. So what did Nandy say, and was it right? And when I mean right, I don't mean correct, I mean strategically sound. As people who follow this channel for a while will know, I pull no punches when tackling the damage that Brexit is doing and destroying the lies and misleading statements and omissions from others trying to cover for this unprecedented example of national self-harm. I also make every effort to understand the political reality for political parties trying to win power. I have routinely had to point two things out when discussing anything like this. First, Labour are not very influential at all. They're not. If they were, they wouldn't keep losing elections. The Conservatives and the Tory media, as well as the media that's not really Tory media but indirectly controlled by the Conservatives, is far more influential on public opinion than Labour can ever be. For Labour to have to try and explain some truths to the public, they would literally have to make the claim that almost every newspaper, almost every news channel, and all those professional looking Facebook pages are all lying to them, and only the Labour Party is telling the truth. Now, think about this from a non-partisan voter who doesn't have a particular interest in politics. Do you think they're going to believe that the Labour Party is saying, everyone else is lying to you, it's only me that's being honest? Does that sound plausible? It doesn't, does it? Second, majority public opinion counts for bog all in politics. Target voters count, and they are still a little bit Brexity. So back to the Dover statement. When I saw it was Lisa Nandy doing the interview and I saw a lot of the criticism, I was initially prepared to believe that maybe she'd made her statement inelegantly. Maybe she's cocked it up a little bit. Because the thing is, give Nandy an issue to debate where she doesn't have to be discreet to avoid pissing off certain voters. She's an absolute firecracker. If anyone has seen her in the House of Commons, she has utterly destroyed no end of Tory MPs. Woe betide anyone who tries to heckle her either. She'll have them for breakfast. At the dispatch box in the House of Commons, peerless. But when you've got to be a little bit coy about certain facts, it's a little bit like fighting with one hand tied behind your back in a debate. Some politicians are good at managing that. Some are not. Nandy is not. She needs to fight fully uninhibited to be at her best. So she does often come a little bit unstuck when it comes to, say, the bullshit of Brexit. But I'm going to have to say, I listened to the interview, I listened to her statement, and she actually got it right. She was asked about the Dover problem in relation to Brexit, and she started talking about the Tories' failure to plan. That was her focus. Oh, it's all right, yes. But the Tories knew about these things. They knew this would happen after Brexit. She wasn't ignoring the impact of Brexit, by the way, but her focus was on the Tories' failure to plan. Some were dismayed that she wasn't saying, well, this is obviously Brexit at fault. But that would be strategically foolish. So let's say she said, oh, of course, this is caused by Brexit. Well, what then? First, Labour piss off at least one of the two main groups of target voters that they're directly appealing to. And at the moment, they're directly appealing to very good effect. I'll talk more about that in the next week. So they lose votes. Bravo, they've just made another Tory government more likely. Because people, when judging Labour statements on Brexit or indeed anything else, need to ask themselves a question. When you say you want Labour to say this or that or the other, whatever it is, ask yourselves, Do you still want Labour to say it if it means letting the Tories win the next election? If the answer is yes, there's no hope for you. And that's another thing to consider. There are some people who are going to vote tactically for Labour at the next election. They understand that we need to remove the Tories. They get that. They'll grumble about Labour's rhetoric on Brexit or whatever. And they will ultimately, when it comes to the election, despite what they're saying now, they'll ultimately make that pragmatic choice. But there are others who mean it. When they say they're not going to vote Labour unless Labour agrees with them exactly to the nth degree on every policy they think is important, any deviation will lose their vote. Well, their vote's already lost to Labour. I mean, it's impossible to win an election by aligning yourself with the views of a single person at the expense of those whose votes actually determine the result. Many of the people who make these sorts of statements on social media, they're not the target voters. They live in constituencies where Labour are either certain to win or have zero chance of winning. So, it doesn't matter. The second thing people are missing is not just that Nandy pisses off key voters if she just blames Brexit. She misses an opportunity. Who are Labour competing against at the next election? Is it Brexit or is it the Conservatives? It's the Conservatives. So, of course, they need to take every opportunity to highlight Tory incompetence. What Nandy has done is shift attention away from Brexit, sure, but although, as I say, she didn't deny Brexit was the root cause, she shifted the attention to how the Tories failed to prepare. For example, yes, she could have explained what Brexit has done. She could have said, look, here's the situation. Let me explain it to the viewers. Imagine a lorry at the border. There's probably one person in that lorry. That means one passport to check and stamp before they're on the way. In the same length of queue, you've probably got 3 cars. Now, that's at least 3 passports, which is 3 times the time taken to check and stamp, because 3 times as many passports. But cars are actually more likely to have passengers than lorries. So there's a pretty good chance that for every 3 cars, you might have up to a dozen occupants. So it might now take 12 times as long to deal with the passports for cars as it does a lorry. Now imagine a coach comes along. I might have 60 people on it. That's 60 times as long to sort out all the passports. And if they're not ready with those passports, a lorry driver knows exactly what's going on. They do this all the time. They've got their passport ready. If these people are having to rummage through their bags for their passport, it takes even longer. So it might take 70 or 80 times as long to check through all the passports and get them stamped. And when they're checking the passports, they're checking for 2 things. First, that there's enough time left on the passport before expiry. It's not enough to be in date. There's got to be enough left on it. Second, that they haven't previously spent too long in the EU. Because remember, UK passport holders are now only allowed to spend 90 days out of 180 in the EU. So it takes time to check that they've got the time still left to spend in the EU and that there's the duration left on the passport before expiry. That takes time. Then it's got to be stamped again for that 90-day restriction. So that the next time they get the passport checked, they know when they came into the EU. And she could have said, and that all is down to Brexit. This didn't used to happen. This is all down to Brexit. She could have said that. And then she could have gone on to say, but if the Tories had planned for this and built more checking points like the French government asked for, then when it got busy, we'd be able to get more people through the border more quickly because we'd have more people doing the checking. But there are 2 problems with Nandy saying that. First, the people who are complaining. Would they be happy if Nandy had done that? Would they be happy? No. Because what they want her to do is to say it's all Brexit's fault and the only way to stop it is to reverse Brexit. That's what they want her to say. But she wouldn't. She would say, yes, of course, this is down to Brexit. But ultimately, the reason why it's as bad as it is because the Tories failed to prepare by, say, building more checking points to be able to get people through more quickly. Labour will expand the facilities so that we can get people through more quickly. That's what she needs to say. She doesn't win anyone over by just saying, oh, it's all Brexit's fault. And the second thing to consider, imagine how long it took me to go through that explanation. The news media outlet could get bored and chop off the bit at the end where she blames the Tories for a failure to prepare. So all that actually goes out to the public is her explanation of the problem, which they could have got from an expert, someone who manages traffic at Dover, as they did anyway. She doesn't win any votes for Labour. She's completely wasted her platform. You know, these complaints, I'm afraid, they're yet another case of people failing to understand basic political realities. It's Labour's job to win power. It's not Labour's job to campaign for us. It's Labour's job to win power so that we get a better government. Their obstacle to power is the Conservatives, nothing else. It's the Conservatives. That means whenever Labour are given any platform to speak to the public, and they get very few of them from a hostile media, they have to use every second efficiently in weakening the Conservatives' position or strengthening their own. If every time a Labour politician is given a platform, if they do not either weaken the Conservatives' position or strengthen their own in the eyes of voters, preferably both, they have wasted that platform. Labour pointing out the damage of Brexit doesn't do either. If you want to hear about how Brexit is stuffing things up, listen to me, or Steve Bray, or Femi Olawale, or Marina Purkis, or our friend Max Robespierre, or Michael Heseltine. You've got people from across the political spectrum, all sorts of different views, all pointing out the damage of Brexit. It's all there. Any number of Brexit commentators, whom one of them or two of them or several of them you will be able to bear to listen to, who can speak the truth unhindered by the weight of responsibility of risking letting the Tories in if they misjudge their audience. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. I hope you found the video interesting. If you did, please click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, the join button for memberships. And until next time, I'll see you later.